No, it has not. No. So you are able to see the screen, right? So you are able to see the screen.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we will start our discussion. Okay. So last class, we have closed our welding. That is, welding means the simple joints. How to do in welding we have closed. We will come back once again to this welded joint and bolted joints when we discuss that movement connections. Okay, because they are very important for beam column. That we will discuss after some point of time. Okay. So anyway, so these are the questions I asked you, and if you are able to understand and if you are able to answer means you are doing fine. Okay, that is the thing. Now the next unit say that is so what we will be doing is this tension members. So yesterday class I have already given you the some briefly we have discussed about this tension member. So this is a definition. So sometimes we also call this as a tie also. Okay. So tension or tie say it is essentially a linear member carrying axial tension causing its elongation or stretching, and all of you have studied in mechanics. Tension members means only load will be there. So P by A, so area will be our design criteria. So section modulus and others, they are not important because section modulus comes when there is a bending. Like last class we have seen that problems. A polar moment of inertia will come when there is torsion. So tension members, the area is the most important design variable. Okay, and the maximum elongation of a tension member, say that also all of PL by AE itself. So this also is there. So now you will see these type of tension members everywhere. Okay, in trusses, in bridges, if there is a steel bridge, say, so you will see this type of truss structure. So you will be having tension members, sometimes wires basically. Okay, this guide wires or something you see we will use for this as a tension member, bracings. So everywhere, say, so many places you will see this tension members. So now last class also I told you sometimes wires and cables are used. Okay, in bridges you would have seen they are all like tension only. Then sometimes bars, rods also we use. Then plates and flats also, rolled steel sections. All everything we use whatever is in the steel tables. But the most whenever you see any trusses, okay, whenever you see any bridge in railway stations, you would have seen many the like footbridge will be there to cross the platforms, the steel and other things. So you will see mostly the angle sections are the one which are widely used nowadays. Okay, so because angle sections, of course, they have all eccentricity and other things are there, but they give some more rigidity also. So these things are preferred nowadays. Okay, but the only problem with angle sections is its eccentricity. Okay, eccentricity are unsymmetric. They are all basically unsymmetric on both the sides. So this is their problem. So there are some tricks people use. Like last class, we have seen one trick, when you want to do welding for angle sections. So that was a design trick. Like, you do welding such that unequal welding you have to do such that CG of weld and CG of that member coincide. So that to avoid, other kinds of problems. So here also, if you see this angle section, so you can see it has, this is its center of gravity, centroid of this angular section. You can see, so it has both the ways there is a issue, like EY and then EZ, it has eccentricities. So although you may connect it as angle sections, then there may be some problems also. So in welding you can arrest. Okay, like you see, you unequal welding you do such that you can have that at least the CG of the weld and centroid will be same, but bolts you can't do that one. So sometimes people use this type of also. So two angle sections say, so this is a plate, so they connect like this. So the advantage here is one eccentricity is removed. See, like EY is not there, there is only one EZ only will be there. Or sometimes you connect angle sections on both the sides of the gusset plate, say, so that you can remove EY, you can remove EZ also, such that the bolt axis and then it's a CG, both of them coincide. So there are several design tricks are there to avoid these type of eccentricities when you have angular sections. So angular sections are the one which are nowadays widely used as tension members. Apart from that, you will see these type also, like four angle sections you connect, like this or something like this, the arrangement. Okay, so the arrangement, the CG and the centroid and other you have to check. So are the channel sections, say like two channel sections have put like this or something like this, or maybe the square hollow sections, tubular also are widely used. So in airports and other things, if you see for tension members, they will see this is tubular, that is a hollow circular tubes they use as a angle sections. You would have seen in airports, railway stations, put over bridges, many places, trusses. If you see, you will see these type of things itself as tension members. Now the first criteria, say for the tension member, okay, is the slenderness ratio. Now, of course, you can ask, say for tension members, there is no way of buckling. So why do we require this slenderness ratio? Okay, that is perfectly fine. But our code gives some type of guidelines. Suppose if you have a member, say, which is always in tension, okay, there is no compressive load or only tension will be acting, then the slenderness ratio you can go up to 400. Okay, this is just a criteria we have. Of course, it is not a pre-tensioned member, so it is a 400. So LE by R, say. So this can be, you see, you can go up to 400. So you can select, the maximum slenderness ratio, say, is, you see, 400 kind of a thing. Okay. Now, suppose if I have a member, say, which is in a, roof truss, okay, or a bracing member, which is not considered. So now when, these trusses are designed, say, when it is subjected to earthquakes or wind, say, so these are all dynamic loads. Okay, so dynamic load means you have seen earthquake means, you will have a positive, negative, you followed. So this type of thing will be there. So when the load changes its sign, your tension member may become a compressive member also. Then it may buckle and, these type of loads itself. But of course, earthquakes, winds are very rare events, they don't occur, day by day, day to day or something like that. So if you are having a truss or a bracing member, when subject, and if it is not effective, so it's subjected to reversal of stress resulting from action of earthquake forces. So they say the maximum is only 350, that is a slenderness ratio. Now similarly, say, so a member subjected to compressive forces resulting from a combination, say, of wind earthquake action, provided the deformation of such member does not adversely affect the stresses in any part of the structure. So then, the slenderness ratio should be 250. And suppose if there is a tension member in which a reversal of direct stress also occurs due to loads other than wind or seismic forces, the maximum effective slenderness ratio should be, you see, L by R. So like for example, railway dynamic loads, say, when it is subjected to dynamic load, so when, you will be having plus and negative sign also, above load, below load, above load, below load, something like an oscillation kind of a thing. So then your tension may go to compression or compression may go to tension, or sometimes when the crane load, say, like gantry girders are there, okay, when the crane load is moving, generally, we use it in the factories, okay, to move the heavy loads, say, we use this, so when the crane is moving on the top, okay, so what happens is your tension member may become a compression, or vice versa also will happen because of variety of other things. So then if there is a chance, you should limit it to 180. But if it is a pure tension, so 400 is the limit which is prescribed by the code. So generally in design, length will be known because you would have already visualized the truss, and the length between the joints will be very well known for you. So, from the, the steel tables, you should select angle section or whatever section you want, such that these are the limits. So this is a general guideline, we use for tension members. Sometimes what they do is they do all the design, in the end they calculate, like, L by R, whether it is between the prescribed limits or something like that also. So they check. So this is like a check actually in the design. On this, of course, slenderness is not important for tension, but sometimes, it may be dynamic loading, say, compression also may come. So these are the limits. Okay, so this is the first thing you have to verify whether, you are doing properly or not. Like if you are in Gauhati, like Agartala, I showed you, right, where the wind is very high, earthquake is also very high, and it is in zone 5, that is a severe thing, say, then you have to, calculate. Suppose if you are in Chennai, of course, here the wind load is very high. Okay, if we see the wind seismic zone map, so sorry, wind map, wind zone map, and seismic zone map, say, if you are located in a place where earthquakes are very rare, wind is also very rare, so that then maybe, you can decide, okay, which one you should go, how much you can go. So these are like our design checks. Okay, but if it is a bridge dynamic loads, so then you have to go for this type of slenderness ratios. Okay, this is the first important thing. And now we will see the how a tension member fails. Okay, or limit states we say. As already I told you, right? Limit state means failure only. So how many limit states are there for tension members, and how many of them we consider in our design? Okay, so this comes from lot of experiments. Okay, so people have done experiments on tension members, or in real life examples to say how they fail. So basically, our code also, even experiments also say there are three modes of failure are there. Like you see, a gross section yielding. So this is one type of a failure. Then other one is net section rupture. Okay, this is one failure. Then of course the block shear, which we have already seen in bolted connection. The whole joint itself, it comes out. Okay, and you will be having a tension plane, then a shear plane. So or we have the code based formulas. You remember two formulas are there. You will be having two planes. One is a weak plane, other one is a strong plane. So weak plane means it can be a shear or it can be tension. Okay, so one plane, weakest plane yields, the strongest plane ruptures. Okay, so this is what we call as a block shear failure. Okay, so this is what we say the gross yielding. So it is like a, when you do the tension test on a specimen, say, okay, on a pure coupon test we do. So what happens is, once it crosses yield stress, then there will be elongation. You have seen in the first classes itself, I showed you the stress strain curve of steel. Okay, then it reaches ultimate and then necking starts basically, and then finally you see it collapses. Okay, so let us see these three things in great detail. So now this is our gross yield. Okay, so this comes from the tension test. Okay, which already we have discussed in our first starting classes. For mild steel, say this is a stress strain curve. Okay, so this is how we do idealized kind. So it automatically, when you, as you keep on increasing the load, so it increases the stresses also, it reaches yield stress, and after that, say the load becomes this one, but stress becomes constant, but you will see a long elongation will happen, and then it goes to this ultimate stress, and then you follow it collapses, necking and other things starts, and then you see rupture happens. So this is how the ordinary tension test. Okay, the stress strain curve for mild steel. Okay, and now here the main problem what happens is so although this is your ultimate stresses here in, but this is perfectly fine. Okay, so it can go your coupon, say it is perfectly safe, and you can go up to D itself. But the problem what happens is this portion, say, so now once it has crossed yielding stress, now what is happening here now? See what is happening in this region.
Strain is increasing.
Strain is increasing. So strain, how much it has increased? If you see the numbers here, can you see here? Yeah. How many times it has increased? Approximately.
Up to 2%.
See 2%. No. If you take the ratio between these two, about 10 times or something like that. Okay. So 1 0 is getting added or something like that. So strain is increasing. So strain is increasing means deformation is increasing. The change in length by original length, you see. So elongation will be too high. So now, as already I told you, in our limit state designs, we have two criteria. So one is limit state of strength, then limit state of serviceability. So now, although once it reaches your yield stress, say, although your structure is safe, okay, the perfectly safe, it can take some more load also. But what happens is this portion, say, our limit state of serviceability comes into picture. So as per our definition, say the member becomes is a non-functional due to excessive elongation actually. Okay, so this limit state of serviceability doesn't get satisfied. So what we try to do is, although your specimen strength may be high, it can go up to yield stress, but we have two states, right? Limit state of strength, limit state of serviceability. So limit state of strength is fine, but limit state of serviceability gets violated basically, okay, because of this excessive, the elongation. So, because it doesn't satisfy our serviceability requirements. So we limit up to this portion itself, up to the yield stress itself. Okay, this is a very, very important thing. So why we are limiting up to yield stress is basically, the because of serviceability limits. Okay, this is a very important thing. So to calculate our area, say, so the unreduced area of the plate, you see, we call as gross area of the plate itself. So this is a design strength due to yield strength. So our code, so this is one which you have to use to find out, you see, the design strength due to yielding of the cross section. So area, this is your gross area, that is, gross area of the cross section. So that is unreduced area. Okay, unreduced area of the cross section. So this has to be multiplied by Fy by gamma m naught. See why we are not using, see this formula we could have used Fu into Ag also. What's the problem if I use Fu into Ag? Why we are using Fy into Ag? See the design strength of this member, it can take load up to Fu. You followed. So Fu into Ag you can take, but why we are taking Fy into Ag?
Sir, by the time the ultimate strength is reached, a lot of elongation would already have taken place.
Elongation. So our limit state of serviceability, it will fail actually if you take Fu into Ag. Okay. So this is a criteria, limit state of serviceability, limit state of strength say. So that's why, we take Ag into F of Y only, no Fu itself. Okay. This is a very important thing. Why we are using, Fy instead of Fu, because the serviceability requirements. Okay. That is the main important thing. And the formula is very simple, right? The force is load into or stress into area, and P is equal to that, F by A or something. So F is P into A, the stress sigma is equal to P by A. So this formula. So P is A times sigma. Okay. So this Ag times sigma yield strength, and of course you have a factor of safety. So this anyway is available in the code. The formula is also available, and the safety factors from that table, if you see, it is 1.1. So this is how we calculate the the design strength due to yielding of the cross section. And now we see this the rupture, that is the second failure state. Okay, that is this one. So the net section rupture we say. Okay, so this net section rupture. This also is a very important criteria. Okay. And now generally whenever you have a section, say, okay, if it is welded section, there are no holes basically. Okay. But if it is a bolted connection, say, you have to do the bolting and others. So then the problem what happens is, right, already the stress concentration factor and other things which happens at the bolts. So now to understand the bolts and how it gets affected. So if you draw stress strain curve, say, okay, so you do a tension test. So if you do a tension test, like this, which is subjected to P, but with a hole actual. Okay, so with a hole. So now if you do a tension test, okay, for a steel flat with hole inside and some diameter, let us say hole has actual. Okay, and then you plot stress versus strain, that is sigma versus strain, or of course force versus the elongation or displacement also you can plot. Okay, so this is how the graph looks like. So this is with no holes. So this graph is same as the previous graph itself. Okay, no holes. But if there is a hole, you will observe a very interesting phenomenon. So how the stress strain curve is looking for when there is a hole, how it is looking like. It is looking like a ductile kind of a thing or a brittle kind of a thing. See the stress strain curve with a hole. You can see here this dotted line. So this is with the hole. So how it is looking like?
So ductile.
Ductile. See, ductile means this type of thing without holes. You have, this is what we call as ductile. You followed, right? This thing. But when there is a hole, what is happening? What has happened? See, without hole, it can go up to Fu, and it can go up to this much, the elongation. You followed, this much distance it can go the elongation, and this is the load. But when there is a hole, what has happened? This it has gone up to only. So strains have, it cannot take that much. You followed, right? So ductility. What is your comment about ductility? Ductility means this one minus this one. Okay, percentage elongation, or you can find out elastic versus this and like that also. Okay. So now what has happened? Ductility has reduced, and if you see the stress strain curve, say, it looks more or less some little bit, a brittle material or something. You followed, right? It looks like. So what happens is, once it comes to this point, so this is my yield strength, okay, of my without hole, that is the yield strength. But once there is a hole, say, what happens is near the hole, what is the stress? If the stress is P by A, say without hole, if it is P by A, when there is a hole, say, at this place, what will be the stress at the joint at these holes?
P by A.
3 times P by A. Okay. So what happens? Because the stress is very high, say 3 times P by A. So this portion, this is the graph which already we have drawn. So here it is a P by A at the edges, but here it is 3 times P by A. Okay. So what happens is here the stresses are so high, say, so this portion will reach yield strength, okay, very fast, because it is a 3 times. So it reaches the yield strength. So this portion of the material around the hole, it reaches the yield stress itself automatically. So once it has reached a yield stress, then what happens is the stresses gets redistributed, and the next fiber, say here, which is that starts taking the load, okay. So automatically what happens is this portion will get reach the yield stress, and slowly you followed it, the entire specimens or the entire cross section, say, you followed, right? So it reaches the yield stress, that is 0.1. So 0.1 is this one. So this is how the stress distribution looks like. Now 0.2 here, whatever we are marking here, so this portion, so some portion of the plate is already gone into, you know, that inelastic ranges, but some plate is not, you know, it is not going into the, it is still in the elastic range. Now at 0.3, say, the whole you followed it, entire cross section has become like a plastified kind of a thing. So it goes up to this limit, and suddenly you will see this type of a rupture kind of a thing, okay. So this is a problem, you know, which happens, the stress strain curve, when you have a hole, say, it behaves, the same mild steels, it behaves in a different fashion when you know, this comes here itself. So generally most of the failure, so you don't see that much elongation, or you know, like in a mild steel, say, you will not see all those things here. So it will have a, you know, this rupture itself. So our code, what they say is, you know, so when you are having this type of you know, the tensile rupture, this type of a failure, so this formula you follow, right, the code specifies. And here please understand, so the formula is same as the gross yield strength itself, but what is that we are using here now? So we have only Fy and we have you know, Fu. So what is that we are using here? Now what is that we have used here? See this now. Gross yielding we have taken Fy because of serviceability issue. But now when there is a plate with a hole, so you will not see excessive elongation or something like that, but the stresses will get redistributed among themselves, and suddenly, you know, you will see a cracks itself. So and it fails by rupture itself or tearing at the critical section. So for this, you know, we take An into, you followed, right, Fu. So this is the most important thing all of you should understand, okay. So when there is a plate with hole, say, because its stress strain curve is entirely different with a plate without a hole itself. So their serviceability, you know, here that doesn't come into picture here. So we use An into Fu itself, and An is nothing but, you see, the net area, not the gross area, okay. That was gross area, unreduced area we used to say. Now here it is basically the net area we say. Okay, that means, you see, the net area, so the plate is going to fail here, that is at this cross section by tearing. So now this place is, say, so the area is you know, because you are having a hole, say, okay. So this is our net area at this cross section, okay. So this area has to be used in our calculations, and we use Fu, okay, not Fy, when there is a hole, because it fails by this itself, okay. But whereas if you use Fu, say, then you follow, right, because of serviceability gets violated. So we use Fy and Ag. Here we use An into Fu. So this is the most important thing you should understand, you know, in plates. Why we use Fy there, why we use Fu here, and other things also. So for this, the stress strain curve of a plate with a hole, this you have to understand, okay. The reason why you will not see much ductility or something is, you know, because of the stresses gets redistributed among themselves itself, okay. And then they also, in our code, they give this 0.9. So this is like another safety factor actually. See, because you know, right, we are going up to Fu, say, this portion we are taking the maximum thing. So to avoid, you followed, right, some type of this problem or that problem, uncertainties or something. So the code takes, you know, 0.9. So this 0.9 has come from the experiments. Even an American code, Euro code also, if used, they use this 0.9 multiplying factor. Our IS code also, you know, they have taken the borrowed this factor from the other codes itself, okay. So this is our safety factor, another safety factor it is. So our failure is, you followed it, it is not Fu 0.9 times. So although we are saying 3, so somewhere here, you know, is our failure point itself, okay. So this is the criteria. So this 0.9 is 10%, you know, we are giving, because if you reach it 0.3, say, then it doesn't have any strength. Suddenly, you know, it collapses. So a little bit to give factor of safety, so we say 0.9 times Fu, because it doesn't have any unreserved strength or something like that. If you go to Fu. So this is why you see we take 0.9, then FU and AN. Okay, so this is the how we calculate. So this is how you are able to see this figure. So you can see how this tensile rupture phenomenon happens. You can see this is a plate with 4 bolts are there. One bolt. This is a channel section. Okay, this one. So it has been connected to some kind of a lap joint. This one. So how it has failed here now. So what has happened? How it has failed? You can see this line here. Small crack you can see here. So it has failed along this, the section here. You can see this crack also. Here also there is a crack. So 3 mm thick specimen, 1 mm thick specimen say. So it has basically failed due to net, the rupture. Net rupture or something you see, we call this one. Okay. So of course, if it is, of course, it can fail here also. Then if you see the net area say, that is AN. So if you take this section, so what will be the net area? Now, in this case, what will be the net area here and this section? What will be the net area? Now, what will be the net area? So if you take this area, say, so total like this, actually, it will be
total length minus 4 into diameter into thickness.
No, 4. That is for to not total. So this is one section. It has failed along one section or 4 sections. How it has failed? See how this plate has failed along 4 or 1.
One section.
One section only. It has failed along this one only. It has not failed along all 4. Okay. So what is the area here? Now you have to do 4. You have to all 4. You have to subtract, or what you have to subtract? How many you have to subtract?
All 2.
2 only have to subtract. Now I am taking this section. This is like this 2 holes. Suppose if I take this section, say, what is the net area along this section also? It is same or different between these two? It is same. But which one? So it can fail along this or it can fail along this also, because AN is same in both the cases. Say. So if you use this formula, AN is same this side or that side. But FU gamma 1, they are constant actually. It doesn't make a difference. Okay, so it can fail along this or it can fail along this. So where you have connected nicely or where the stresses are high, say, so that section you followed it gets broken here. Okay, so this also you can see. So this is an angle section. Okay, but only one side of the angle section has been connected to the plate. So this side there is no connections here. Okay, now how it has failed here? Can you see, identify this one? How it has failed? What is this failure?
By rupture.
By rupture only. So you can see near the hole. So you followed. So automatically you see it has gone like this actually. Okay. But of course this side there is no bolting. So this is what net section rupture. Sometimes you will see variety of failure like this also. So this is a very special failure. See, net section rupture means like this it has to. So whole this portion has to crack actually. But here this portion has failed. It has not failed like this. It has failed only near the hole itself actually. Okay, so this is a very special failure we call as punched. This happens at punched holes. See how do they drill? How do they make holes in the steel sections? There are 2 things are there. One is by punching. Right, in YouTube there are several videos are there. You take the metal specimen, that factory, that instrument say, suddenly it presses. Okay, so automatically this portion, the material gets removed actually. Punching they say. Okay, punching shear or punching holes. Other one is drilling. So you take a drilling equipment and then you drill the hole. Now generally what they say is a punching is very more dangerous, because suddenly you remove something. So you can see here this is a punched hole. So if you see the nearby this plate, so nearby around the region which is around the plate, what happens is because of this sudden punching or whatever say, the edges you will see it has already gone into yield range or something like that. Okay, so this what happens is, if it is a punched holes say, then you will see these type of special failures also. They are not net section rupture. The whole plate has not ruptured like here. Okay, but near the hole you will see some time, and then the failure pattern will be like this. So this happens at punched holes. But when you are doing drilling say, so this problem will not be there. Okay, so this is also one thing which they have observed in many failures. Okay, so punching holes. So we will see if it is a punched hole or if it is a drilling hole. So what our code says also. Okay, so there are some guidelines in the code says, because punching holes means you will see punching shear failure also they call. Drilling holes, you will not see these type of failures. So now here the most problem is how to calculate the net area. So this is our the net area. So this is the most important thing in net tensile area or whatever say for our this type of bolts. So now here also there is the simple thing is, suppose if I have chain bolting, say, okay, chain bolting, so like this. So this case, okay, so you have made a nice arrangement, you see, equal rows, columns or something. And now what will be the net tensile area here for this chain bolting? It can fail along what are the cross sections. It can fail along ABCD, it can fail along this section, or it can fail along this section. What is the tensile area? How many holes you have to subtract?
2 holes.
2 holes you followed, right? So if AG is a gross area, say, okay, so this is my gross area minus the hole. So B times D, B is the width of the plate, okay? So B times T is its gross area. So minus N into DH into T actual, okay? So DH is a hole diameter. So you know, right, for ordinary standard means 2 mm, we have seen long back itself. So this becomes, you see, the sectional area, you see, of this type of chain bolting. And which section it may fail? It may fail, the net area is same along all these 3 sections, okay? It may fail any one, whichever is the weakest, or you know, right, where you will see this type of failures. Now, among these 3 sections, net area is same, okay? But where you will see the failure? See, suppose I have a bolted connection like this, okay? So this is my lap joint. So I have 1 bolt here. Then the same problem, say this, and then I have 3 bolts are there. Now where it will fail? And this is a P, this is P. So where generally it fails? The first row or second or third?
First or the third?
Why? Middle one?
They carry more force because they are at the outside.
Excellent.
The
Okay.
load being applied.
Excellent. So I have already shown you in bolted that figures also. So whenever there is a long joint, say, so generally the load will be carried from the extreme bolts. This or this, the middle ones, although our design assumes that they are equal and other things, but the end bolts are the one which it is not uniform distribution. You remember, it is something like this. Okay, the stress distribution. So generally the end bolt. So now in this plate, so this is ABCD is a potential thing, or this side actually. Although net area is same for all the sections itself. Okay. So this is how we carry out, you see, the net sectional areas for the plates itself. You take gross area. So gross area is simply B times D, B times T. Okay, this is a gross area minus, you see, N times this whole diameter. Now for chain boltings, it is very, very easy to calculate. But when there is a staggered bolting actually, so you are using this type of bolting, diamonds bolts are staggering, because the pitch is not same, or you have something like this. Okay, so this type of bolting, say. So how do we handle this? How to calculate this net sectional area is a big issue. How it can fail? Okay, so this is a biggest issue itself. And if you see, like you said, this is once I'm showing you some test here. So these are all staggered bolts. Okay, so they have put up staggered bolts, and they have studied how these bolts fail by rupture in what is the failure pattern here itself. So this is a chain bolting, the first one. You can see, right, the chain bolts. So I have 2 bolts here, 2 bolts here. So now how it has failed? Now this portion or this portion. So how it has failed? So it can fail like this, or it can fail like this also. Okay. So this here it has not failed. So here you can see. So the section has ruptured along. You follow, right, this line actually. That same tensile area, whatever we have predicted. This is perfectly fine. Now when it comes to staggered bolting, so you will see variety you follow, right, the patterns actually. Now how it has failed here? This staggered bolting. So these are 2 bolts here. 2 bolts are there. Now what is the failure plane here? It is a horizontal, or how it is looking like the failure plane? See how the failure plane is looking like, how where it has a crack has come. Horizontal crack, or how the crack is looking like? See how this plate has failed. Here it was a perfect horizontal, near the hole it has a cracked. But here how it has a crack, in which direction it is?
Horizontal and 45
It
degrees.
is
Horizontal and 45 degrees.
no, it is like a inclined kind of a thing. Here also you can see how it has failed. You followed. So it is something like this, inclined kind of failure. Here also you can see it has gone, something like this. But whereas here, this what is how the crack has happened. You forget the dotted line. See how this crack how it has failed here. Whether it has failed inclined or perfect horizontal. This figure.
Horizontal.
Horizontal. So near this hole only it has broken. It has not failed like this also. You remember, it has not failed like this. But whereas here also you can see, so it has failed just like this. It has not failed like this. You followed. So when there is a staggered bolting, say, so this is one bolt here, one bolt here, one bolt here, say. So some places it failed like this. Some places it failed only one hole, and you can see variety. So here also you can see this type of failures, and here how it has failed also at one side. Here how it has failed. This specimen how it has failed, horizontal or inclined. Both the holes are this one or only at one hole.
Inclined failure.
Inclined failure. Here also, here it is not inclined failure. See, this is also staggered bolting, but here, it has failed in a peculiar fashion. See, this hole also, it has come out actual, okay? But finally, this hole has become into two pieces. You followed here. Of course, the failure we say like this only, because this hole also got broken. This hole, but rupture has happened. So sometimes it is inclined, sometimes it is horizontal, and when you have these type of bolting, see, like say 3 holes are there, okay? Now 3 holes here also. Now how the pattern is looking like? Is it horizontal, or all 3 holes have contributed, or one hole has contributed?
All three holes have.
All 3, you can see the pattern like this. Here, if it in chain bolting, what you have observed in chain bolting, so how is the failure pattern? See, whether there are 3 holes, here there are 4 holes actual. How the things are fractured? Always they are fracturing along a straight line only, like this, or like this. Of course, it can go like this, or it can go like this, or it can go along any of the end bolts only has failed. But when there is a staggering bolting, so here also it is, the like this. Here you see 4 bolts are there. See, now it has failed like this actual. Like an arch kind of a thing, you can see the failure. Here also you can see something it has failed. In some cases, say, it has failed, it was supposed to fail like this, but it has failed like this only. You can see here clearly. So when there is a, here also you can see there is this is a stacked bolt, but it was supposed to fail like this. You don't know, but it has failed, in a horizontal fashion only, like chain bolting only, although we are putting a staggering. So here also it is a staggered bolt, but it has failed, you see, along a horizontal line itself. Here also horizontal, here also horizontal. So like this, if you do in a finite element, or if you do numerical testing, so like you see the staggered bolts, if you put like this, and then you could try to find out the failures. So here also you can see. So this is experiment. Okay, so our finite element or numerical methods, you can predict, see the failure patterns are like this, and some cases, although the same, if the staggered bolting is done like this, but it fails in along, you see the one line, it's like a chain bolting kind of a thing. So what does it tells you finally? So in staggered bolting, so how it will fail? Suppose somebody has given you like this, how many ways it can fail? So this one, if how many ways it can fail, what are the failure cross sections? So it can fail, you have seen, right? Some cases it was inclined, some cases it was horizontal, some cases we had arch kind of a thing. So you have variety of the failure pattern. So when you are having a staggered bolting, so the problem comes is this plates, it can fail like this one also, like at bolt A only it can fail, or your failure patterns, it can go like this also. So you will be having, variety like this, or it may break like this, and then it go like this, and then it may break also. So you can have variety, you see, like this also. Variety of failure patterns can come when you have this type of the staggering itself. Okay, so like if you see A, B, this bolting, say, so it can fail like this also. This is one failure pattern, or it can fail like this also, or it can fail like this also. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
So
this A bolt, then suddenly this one, then it can come like this also. So variety of the failure patterns comes into picture. So now our code say, so the formula when you are having staggered grids, we use this special you followed. So B minus n times D will use. Suppose if I have a failure pattern like this, okay, or let me. So if I take the failure pattern like this, okay, so this, then this, and then this. So in this failure pattern, all the three holes are contributing. One hole here, one hole here, all the three holes are failing. So now what happens in this expression is B minus 3 times DH actually. Okay, so this comes. So because you are subtracting the all the holes, say, okay, because the distances there is the overlap. So we add one small you followed, right? This P is anyway pitch and G is the gauge distance. Okay, so we add this compensation, okay, because you have subtracted all the three. So we add this multiplied by T to compute this, the net tensile area. Okay, so this expression, say whatever has been given. So this we call this formula came from Cochrane actually. So this you should remember. Okay, Cochrane's formula they say. So this formula, he established in 1922. Okay, so 1922 his paper was published. You see, he's an engineer. So he developed that formula, and that formula also came up because of, see what happens is when it is inclined, say, see suppose if it is, like this, tension, say if I take a plane here, what will be the stress if A is the area of cross section?
P by
P by, and how it will be distributed? It will be distributed in a uniform kind of a thing. So any plane you take, say you have only sigma 1 only. There is no shear stresses. But same problem, say if I put a along inclined plane, now what will be the stress? What happens to this if the plane is inclined, say what stresses will be acting on this plane? You have studied, right, in your mechanics. You're given a plane, you have a stress distribution, say if the plane is rotated by 30 degrees or 40 degrees, what happens to this plane? What type of stresses will be there? If the plane was perfect like this, then you have only sigma 1 only normal stress, no shear stress at all. But if the plane is inclined, what happens?
shear force will also come.
Shear force also will come. You know how to find out on an inclined plane, right? Mohr circle, that cos 2 theta, sin 2 theta, that formulas you would have studied, okay, in your mechanics of material. So you will be having normal stress as well as shear also comes into picture when the planes are inclined actually, okay. So when the planes are inclined, you have so the failure pattern, say the failure, how it is failing, you have a combination of tension plus shear also comes, and this Cochrane says, so this person he used this maximum shear stress theory, okay, the maximum shear stress theory we say. See other theories, other failure theories, whatever we have studied in this course, what is the most important failure theory we used for all the shear stress, that Fu by root 3, that F plus 3 times Q square, say what is what failure theory that all those expressions came from? Von Mises theory. Now, what is maximum shear stress theory? Any of you have an idea? There is one more failure theory is there. So this is a maximum shear stress theory failure, they say. Any of you have an idea? No. So this theory, there is no root 3 business. What does this theory is? That von Mises is related to the second invariant of your deviatoric stress tensor. Okay, that is a von Mises theory. Maximum shear stress theory have what is maximum shear stress theory of failure? What happens?
Sir, it assumes that the material fails because of shear.
No, that is fine. But what is the theory? See, the von Mises also says it is a shear only, right? If you by root 3 only we take. What's the difference between these two? The philosophy I'm asking. Okay. See that the von Mises is related to how did we get root 3? That is because if you want von Mises, you have to write the deviatoric, that is the second invariant. Okay, I1, I2, I3 will be the invariants. So the second invariant of the deviatoric part of the stress tensor, if you write, you will get that von Mises formula and root 3 and other things comes. In maximum shear stress theory is very, very simple. If I have a stress tensor, say, sigma 1 1, sigma 1 2, sigma 2 2, sigma 3 3, all these things, you draw a Mohr circle actually. Okay, so because it's a 3 dimensions, you will be having 3 circles will be there. Okay, so you have one circle here, another circle will be there, and another circle also, all things will be there. So you will be having 3 principal stresses, sigma 1, then sigma 2, sigma 3, say, if I arrange like this. Okay, now what is the maximum shear stress if I know the principal stresses? Suppose I'll for 2 dimensions, I have my Mohr circle, sigma 1, sigma 2. What is the maximum shear stress? What is the maximum shear stress? Sigma 1, sigma 2 are the principal stresses. These 2 points on the Mohr circle. Where is the maximum shear stress is located?
Maximum shear stress is sigma 2 minus sigma 1 divided by 2.
Excellent. So where it is located? It is located here. You followed the top and bottom. So this theory is a maximum stress theory. It goes from Mohr circle. So if you have a stress tensor, say, you find out its eigenvalues, sigma 1, sigma 2, sigma. Now suppose if there are 3 circles are there in 3D, how many maximum shear stresses will be there? In 3D, 3 circles are there. One combination is sigma 1, sigma 2, then sigma 2, sigma 3, then sigma 1, sigma 3. So what is the maximum shear stress in this problem?
Sigma 3 minus sigma 1 divided by 2.
Excellent. Of course, you have another maximum shear stress also. Sigma 2 minus sigma 1 by 2, then sigma 3 minus sigma 2 by 2. You have 3, but finally the maximum value is sigma 3 minus sigma 1 by 2. So what this theory says is, the maximum shear stress, if it reaches some limit actually, FPU or something like that, the material fails itself. Okay. So please understand, von Mises theory is entirely different. We don't calculate principal stresses or something in von Mises. Debate part we take. That is one type of a theory. Maximum shear stress is very, very simple. You take a stress tensor, you find out its eigenvalues, and then you simply, the lowest value, highest value. So this is divided by 2, subtract, and then you will get the shear. And if it goes to some other limits, you will get some type of formulas. So this is Cochrane formula. So this formula has come from the maximum shear stress theory. And because why maximum shear stress? The relation is in uniaxial tension. You already, this is eigenplane only, because you are having only P by A, no shear stress. But once you have inclined, say, then you have this problem. Okay, so this Cochrane's formula, say, it comes from this maximum shear stress, and then because of this inclined combination. So now if I have A, B, C, this is a staggered bolting, say. So but the staggered bolting, the problem is you can have several failure paths, so you have to do all calculate. So this is one failure path. Okay, this is my failure mode 1. So here the tensile area will be simply B minus D into T, because only one hole is contributing. Now here, say, the failure pattern is like this. You followed. So this is another failure pattern. Okay, so here all the 3 holes are contributing. So B minus 3 times DH. Now I am having one inclined plane, say, one inclined plane here, another inclined plane here. So for the first plane, I will add PS square by 4 times G1. For the second one, say, PS square by 4 times G2. That comes from this one. This comes from the first one. So this is one failure mode. So now you have to calculate, all possible failure modes. So finally, which one you will take in design? Now, see, suppose here, say, I have got some tensile area. Okay, B minus D into T. Here, this failure mode, I have one other tensile area here. So which one you will use it in design? Whichever is the. I'm always surprised whenever I succeed when I'm attending to whichever is, which you will calculate mode 2 or mode 1. So I have got 2 areas. So which one you will use? Which plane it will fail? Which plane it will fail? At the plane wherever the area is? No. No, you people are there. So which plane it will fail? First failure least mode area. 1 or whichever one is the least area. That's all. Okay. So that is how we have to calculate. So anyway, so I will stop here. So next class, we will continue our discussion. Okay. Before we close, I think one person has asked me, I think WhatsApp he has sent the doubt. That is for the packing plates, right? I think assignment to first problem, they have sent some doubts here. I don't. See, some of you have asked one doubt. Okay, so that is, I think, question number 1 of this one. Where is that? No, see, question number 1 of assignment 2. What is that assignment 2? I think packing plate it was. Okay. So we have a butt joint. So 2 butt joints are there. Who asked that question? So 2 butt joints are there. Of course, they are of unequal thicknesses. So bolts are here, then bolts are here, then here also, but because of unequal thicknesses, so you may have to provide a packing plate also. Oh, sorry. Packing plate was also, you can see that assignment 2. Okay, so this was there, and finally say, so this was and there you have a cover plate also. So followed. So you have bolts like this and bolts like this, and here also we have bolts, and here also we have bolts, and there is one bolt which connects the packing plate to the main plate. Now what was the doubt?
Sir, actually, the doubt is regarding finding the plate strength.
How do you calculate plate strength? No, plate strength or bolt strength?
Plate strength. Like we have to, they have asked for finding it for maximum strength, maximum efficiency. Right? So how do we equate it to the, we are assuming that shear strength will be will be smaller when compared to the design bearing strength. So we are equating
that is
this
for the bolt. Okay, there are 2 things are there. One is the bolt, other one is the plate. Okay. So now for the bolt you have calculated, right, shear strength and the tensile strength, and here you have to be very careful. You have to, although there is a packing plate here, say what is that you have to do whenever there is a packing plate?
We are subtracting.
No, not subtracting. So what is that you have to do? Shear. How many shear planes will be there when there is a packing plate? So you have a cover plate will be there. Then you have a packing plate is there. Then we have the main plate also is there. Okay. So how do you calculate, the shear strength? How did you do that one? Then another bearing also is there. So the number of shear planes will be. So assumption is the packing rivets or the packing plates is no, it will not help anything in design. So the number of shear planes are still. How many shear planes are there for bolt?
2 shear planes.
2 shear, but here when you are having packing plate, that also you don't consider that one. So still you have to assume that 2 shear planes are there, and then you calculate your bolt shear strength and the bearing strength, whichever is minimum you take it. Okay, divide the total load by this, you will get how many number of blades are there. And now so bolts is clear, right?
Yes, sir. Bolts is clear.
But you have to multiply by that beta. You remember, right? BKG. You have to reduce the joint strength. I think 1 minus 0.25 something is there in the thickness of the packing plate. So the bolt shear you have to follow, right? This you have to multiply by beta per kg. So this is clear, right?
Yes, sir.
Now you have to calculate for the plate. So now for the plate, what is that you are doing? So there are, you remember that, that area has to be subtracted, right, for the hole. So when there is a hole, say, you remember, we calculated the tensile area of the plate. So how many rows you got?
2 rows, sir, like total
it's
10.
A chain bolting only, right?
Say we got 15, sir. Then how should we proceed?
Which one?
Say number of bolts is 15. Then how should we proceed, sir, with the arrangement?
See, already the problem is, in the problem already she has given the figure, no, below.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Already she has given the thing.
And end distances are given.
So what you have to do, 15 means, if you are on a chain bolting, say 15, you have plate 16 kind of a thing.
Okay, sir. 8 in each row.
8 in each row you can put it, and then tensile area you can calculate at an minus today we discussed, DH times T. That formula use calculate the strength of the plate. Okay.
Sir, but the B, is it perpendicular to the load or parallel to the load?
So B is width.
Yes, sir.
Width is that we have to find out. Width depends on your number of bolts, right?
It is 8, so perpendicular to the plate we need to take 8 bolts and calculate.
So your bolts are like this. Whatever bolts are like this, so this is the load. So B is this one. So width of the plate depends on your bolts. Okay.
Sir, if the number of bolts are 16, then we take 8 in each row.
8 in each row you can take.
Okay, sir.
So in this problem, thickness only has been given. Width has not been given for the plate.
Yes.
So
Sir,
width depends on your load.
Gauge and edge distance are also not given, sir. This is perpendicular to the load. So can we take gauge equals to pitch and edge distance
You can
equals
do,
to
yes. We have that guidelines are there, no? How much gauge, how much this you have to take, that you can decide. The pitch you have to check actually. So the pitch has to be selected. Right? The tensile area, you have that distance will be there, no?
Yes, sir.
So that you have to use it or you follow it. You can arrange all.
Actually,
And of
pitch
course,
is already given in question, sir.
yes. Already, I think she has already given the answer also. You should not give this figure at all.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Follow.
So
I think
the same we can use as gauge, right, sir? The same
yeah,
pitch.
already answer is given, right? Then why are you asking me?
Yes, sir. Sir, and they have given the load to be 800 kilonewton.
No.
That is tensile load, sir. So while calculating, should we take the factor of safety 800 into 1.5?
Yes, you mentioned.
Oh,
See, what happens is some problems, design, they will say load, factored load. Sometimes they say load, and some textbooks, they assume it as a factored load also. Okay. But what you people do is you clearly mention in the starting what is you have assumed.
okay, sir. So
If you
this
say
gauge and
factored
edge
load is
distance also we need to show our assumption and then go
yes,
ahead with calculating.
that's all. Straightforward.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
So already there is no doubt should be there. Already the answer is given. Okay.
Yes, sir.